So, I've had a thought kinda in my head for a bit, and honestly, today's the day that I'm gonna kinda just talk about, and that is a potential Persona 3 Reload remaster. Before you take out the pitchforks, it's because mainly the jump in quality between Persona 3 Reload and Persona 4 Revival. The quality is a lot more finely done with Persona 4 Revival, and especially seeing more and more information coming out for the game. I think it's absolutely imperative that Atlus does in fact kind of remaster Persona 3 Reload in the context of sort of like a Fez edition or a Golden edition. Now, certain things have not been fixed with Persona 3 Reload since its release 2 years ago. I know it's crazy to say. Nothing has been necessarily fixed despite it getting the episode I guess DLC. It was more or less they slapped it on and moved on to the next project. While there was some updates, it was just kind of minor bug fixes. However, that didn't fix the underlying issues with Persona 3 Reload. Now, I do want to address the elephant in the room. The title does not suggest that I think that this is a soulless remake or that this remake is the most terriblest thing ever. But the point of sort of a remastered version of Persona 3 Reload is just fixing a lot of the things that didn't look great within the game initially. The dorm lighting, for instance, is still broken. For whatever reason, they never went back and fixed it, and still kind of looks like it's pre-production. Most of the environments look pretty nice for the most part within the game, and it's probably the most beautiful Persona 3 has ever looked. But because the dorm just looks so out of place compared to all the other environments, especially if you have a computer that can run this game at 200% resolution, it just looks phenomenal. But the dorm still looks like it's in beta. While most of the environments look great, and I don't have much more complaints besides the end dungeon and the fight against Nyx, because honestly, this is kind of a contrast to what the original game looked like, and it still kind of boggles my mind. It just looks so different, especially the Nyx fight too. It's still cool. Like, they just kind of went with what they wanted to go with, which is fine. However, what's not excusable, like the end dungeon for Persona 3 Reload, is the in-engine cutscenes that are pre-rendered videos. For whatever reason, they decided to go this method with some of the cutscenes within the game, and they look extremely out of place. Not only do they look out of place, and I think it's capped at a 30 FPS limit, they are noisy as hell. Now, if you don't know anything about video compression, they really compress the hell out of these video files. I don't know what the issue is, but most of these look awful. The ones that are rendered in game actually look really nice, but the ones that are not rendered in game look really, really bad. Especially the last cutscene for the game. While for most people, maybe they didn't notice, but you can still depict what's going on. It just doesn't look as good as it could have looked. And especially if that scene happens within game engine instead of a pre-rendered cutscene, I think that would have been a more impactful cutscene. It would have more or less immersed you in that cutscene than what we got. And although the ending is still beautiful, it just would have been even better and a lot less compressed. Additionally, adding episode Aegis to the game finally for free instead of having to spend $30 more than what it is on Steam right now, which might be full price, or maybe if there's a sale, it's probably a little less for the game, but the DLC is probably still going to maintain that $30 because I think it does most of the time. Now, for most people, this DLC probably isn't really worth playing as it's just a 30-hour grind fest, and the story is still pretty much the same as it was on the PS2. Always not great, and always kind of just a grind fest to go through. But regardless, getting that with the remastered edition or golden edition or whatever this version could be called, I still don't know if it would actually happen. It would just be a good faith thing to do, just so that we're not sitting here still paying $30 for a DLC that was just kind of slapped onto it because they didn't have enough time to actually make it happen. Which they've definitely learned that lesson for Persona 4 Revival. Additionally, they could go ahead and go the extra mile and do balancing additions to the game. Like balancing theurgy a bit more into the combat of Persona 3 Reload than it feeling like it's just a slapped in thing, which is a lot of where most people's concern lies because it is pretty broken to just use that. And if you hadn't used theurgy throughout your entire playthrough is probably a lot harder than most, as the abilities with theurgy are quite a bit broken. Very great to see the number go high though, because that's kind of what I like to do, is maxing damage any point I can, especially after replaying this game a few times, because I really am not great at maxing these social links apparently. The last thing that they should of course add is FEMC to Persona 3 Reload. Now, for this remaster edition, I think, of course, this would be a great incorporation, as she is being added to P5X. So pretty much the model's already being made for them. Now, they might have to do some adjustments for the engine to handle FEMC, but also just like doing social links probably isn't going to be like a terrible amount of work because they're already written social links. They just have to create a few 3D models from what I understand and swap out a few other social links within the game if they were to add FEMC. Now, genuinely it would be cool if they did go the extra mile and added FEMC because it gives these social links that are locked to portable a new light within Reload, a modern way to play, or a definitive way to play the FEMC route within Persona 3 Reload, which really is what it should have been on release, but obviously due to budgeting, this game got kinda held back from being the definitive way to play Persona 3. Now this leads into the discussion at the end of the video is that Persona 3 has never had a kind of definitive port that anyone and everyone can play and not have any type of issues with it. Sadly, with Persona 3, with every single release, whether it's Persona 3 Original / Fez, not having controllable party members in those versions basically limits as to who can play the game, because people love having controllable party members, especially Final Fantasy fans, which I kind of came from the Final Fantasy series. I kind of sucked at Final Fantasy when I was a kid, but when I became like a teenager, I was more so inclined to be able to play these games a lot better. Just Persona 3 not having controllable party members was kind of a downer for me, so I had to actually mod it within PCSX2 once that became available. Additionally, Persona 3 Portable releasing had controllable party members, but the story was a visual novel type. Now, I don't mind visual novels if that's the story you're telling and that's what the work is based off of, right? I've played Danganronpa in the past, and although I like and hate the game, it is still something that, you know, has its own unique experience and isn't necessarily based on a 3D game. Because once you base it off of the original work, the anime cutscenes aren't there, for instance. And just with how flat the game looks, and there's really no 3D environments in the overworld, and it's just limited to Tartarus. So with that said, if they were to actually release this, like, I would hope it would be either free or at the very least a $10 upgrade for already owners of Persona 3 Reload. Additionally, I just really want this to be the definitive way to play Persona 3 because, like, they did put a decent amount of work into Reload, and with how much work they've put into Persona 4 Revival, having sort of a definitive version of Persona 3, a more remastered, fixing all the quirks with the game, and really introducing the new players that will be coming with Revival to Persona 3 Reload would be a really, really good way to do that, and trying to give them the same level of quality as Revival is going to have. But with that said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please put what you think in the comments down below, as I'd like to hear what you guys think, as this might be a bit more of a controversial video. I'd like to hope I was pretty balanced, but I'm sure someone's gonna see this, see my reaction to Persona 4 Revival, try and be like, he wanted to remake this entire time after seeing that. No, I think just a remaster and kind of fixing the quirks with this game and giving Persona 4 Revival players the same level of quality of Persona 4 Revival within Persona 3 Reload. Or Reloaded, as I'm sure that's what the remaster is going to be called. But with that said, I hope you enjoyed the video once again, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.